That encounter at Breakers Stadium produced a 5-all draw after the Breakers led 5-2. The memory still lingers for Newcastle, who must counter Canberra's aerial tactics.
At least if we can compete with them in the air, we've got a chance of stopping them from scoring. But in that game here, we just didn't even compete with them, and that's why they got on the end of things.
Meantime, goalkeeper Craig Carter will be available for selection next week after a costly indiscretion. In the Super League, Adamstown is away to Leichhardt. Locally, Western and Hamilton play tomorrow with 4 games on Sunday, including Highfield's clash with Cessnock. In netball, the Newcastle Flyers make their debut in the Interdistrict Netball tomorrow. It's the first time the city has entered 4 teams and used the Flyers tag. In surf lifesaving, Swansea Belmont's Nat McGregor will be Newcastle's sole representative at the Australian Ironman Championship on the Gold Coast. The delayed event will be in memory of boat crew member Robert Gattenby, who died while competing in the recent national titles. And at the Motordrome tomorrow night, the speed cars will make their final appearance for the season, with local Adam Clark among those taking part. In an indifferent pre-season for the New Look Falcons, Scott McGregor has been one of the side's standout performers. His efforts have been rewarded by Coach Wiseman, as the former Warners Bay High student will start against Geelong tomorrow night.
I'm very excited. It's something I've always dreamed about. I didn't expect to start my first game, but it's happened that way, so I just grab it with both hands and go from there.
You know, he had 27 points and 19 rebounds against Brisbane in a preseason game, and he's had his form has just been very good, and he's earned himself a starting spot for his NBL debut.
The 20-year-old forward, who stands more than 2 metres tall and weighs 102 kilograms, has already enjoyed outstanding success as a junior. A former member of the AIS, McGregor will no doubt enjoy future honours in the senior ranks. But for now, he's looking forward to tomorrow and playing in front of his home crowd.
I'm glad I got 3 games away first, just to get used to the team a bit more, and then come home and hopefully play really well in front of the family and friends.
He may have been king of the kids at the Knights League Clinic today, but the fact is this king is a mere kid himself. A former Inverell player, Owen Craigie only turns 18 next week. He made his first grade debut in a losing side against the Western Reds last season and will play just his second game in the top grade on Sunday.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a very good game last year over at the WACA, but hopefully I can play good this weekend against the Tigers and fulfil the requirements that's needed on the wing position.
In his limited opportunities this season, the former Aussie schoolboy has done enough to impress coach Mal Reilly, but has some talented players keen to displace him.
Whenever he's gone on in the first grade, he's produced something and he's lifted his game.
Hopefully I can just sort of make a permanent place by this year if I play well on the weekend, see what happens.
Meantime, former Cessnock and Country Player of the Year Jamie Forbes will return to the Hunter on Sunday as hooker for the Tigers reserve grade side.
Peter Gehrig doesn't look like an art collector, and that's probably because he's a tow truck driver from Lake Macquarie near Newcastle. But while he may know little about art, the 26-year-old certainly has an eye for a bargain. Dobell lovers around the country are green with envy.
Well, I think the fellow had a terrific stroke of luck there. I just wish we'd had the same.
These William Dobell sketches and personal effects, housed like precious gems at a Sydney art gallery, were found by Gehrig in a ramshackle garage at Wangi. The former owner of the valuable pieces is a local who befriended the artist before he died in 1970. But the unlucky vendor obviously had no idea of the pearls within his backyard oyster. He parted with them for the unbelievably low price of $150. Christie's is now planning to auction the sketches, letters and photos of the three-time Archibald Prize winner in Melbourne and expects to raise about $20,000. Unfortunately for local collectors, the price tag means the works may well end up overseas.
Dashing down there and spending 20 grand is not really on, I don't think.
But while the art world may be in an uproar for Peter Gehrig, it's thanks very much and back to the tow truck. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
Leading 14-6 at half-time, South Newcastle ran away with the match in the second half. The Lions scoring 4 tries in quick succession to totally overwhelm Waratah. Round 3 concludes tomorrow with a Bay at home to West. In netball, the Newcastle Flyers have made a successful debut in the Inter-District League. The Flyers led at every change against Hills District, taking the match 36-25. Lara Wellham and Joe Bora best for the home side. In hockey, the National League made a visit to Newcastle this afternoon, with the Melbourne Redbacks making a positive start against the Sydney Warriors. Proved the difference as the Redbacks went on to win the match 3-2. And in soccer, the Breakers have lost to Canberra 2-0 in the ACT this afternoon, while locally Western defeated Hamilton.
The ride for Westpac began with an early morning muster at the Elamara property near Sandy Hollow. From there, 120 riders headed southwest in small groups following the Goulburn River to Barami. The 30-kilometre trek, organised by the Young family, served 2 purposes. The outing united the small township of Sandy Hollow, while at the same time helped raise more than $1,000 for the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service.
It was a great ride, and we through the scenic valley there, and plenty of cross-country work, and no incidents, and everybody enjoyed the ride.
Meanwhile, nearby at Merriwa, some of the best young pony club riders from across New South Wales and Queensland took part in the state championships. The 2-day event attracted 270 competitors. Newcastle's Zone 25 took out the major trophies in both the sporting and camp drafting events. Merriwa's Kristen Martin, Bulladeela's Gina Payne, Louise Todd from Katingal in the northwest and Danny Farley from Maclean River were all selected in the state team.
After an ordinary pre-season, the Falcons' improvement continued against Geelong, and there were few better in the 8-point victory than Scott Ninnis. The scores were deadlocked 3 times in the final quarter. Ninnis has experienced one of the telling factors and earned him the MVP award.
Yeah, I was fairly happy with it. I guess it was good to get out there and score a few points, but most importantly the team won, and that was fantastic and a real confidence builder for us.
And they'll need to draw on all that confidence and more for this weekend's Doomsday double against Adelaide and Perth. For Ninnis, the clash with the 36ers is of special significance after he left the club in controversial circumstances last season.
It's going to be tough. You know, a lot of guys I've been involved with for a few years. There's a lot of people there that I'm very good friends with, but I'll certainly be pretty fired up to put in a good showing there.
The Falcons have split their last 2 trips to the West, the same result against formidable opposition, would more than satisfy Coach Wiseman.
Something out of the box is the theme of this year's show. In the wake of last year's roaring success, fans were making sure they weren't going to miss out this year. While 13-year-old Marcus Jones entertained the waiting crowd, organisers sold thousands of tickets.
It's a real full-on variety show built into a theme, and that's what makes it special.
95 schools from throughout the Hunter region and parts of the Central Coast are involved this year, and more than 2,500 students will take to the stage for the grand finale. Organisers are hoping this will break a world record. The production team have been overwhelmed by the students' interest in the event.
Our hardest thing at the moment is that we've got to say no to more students, which is really difficult because there are so much and there's so much talent out there.
Starstruck 96 is showing at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre from the 4th to the 6th of June. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
I won't pull any punches. Oh, Maine aren't a good side. They weren't a good side. We were a bloody awful side.
It was as simple as that. But despite the frustrations of recent poor performances, Mal really has maintained his sense of humour and, it would seem, his patience. Teenager Owen Craigie was the only unforced change from Sunday's loss.
Owen Craigie didn't do anything wrong. I just feel that Keith has played fairly solidly. He's a solid competitor, and to give him an opportunity.
In the forwards, the squad has been bolstered with the inclusion of Robbie McCormack, who is expected to put pressure on the rest of the pack. In the backs, Jamie Ainscough is sidelined with an ankle injury. Former Mariner Brad Godden, an automatic selection.
His experience and that, and defensive qualities, yeah.
Andrew Johns is hopeful of returning for the match against West next weekend after having his appendix removed. But the coach is confident the Knights can bounce back this Sunday against Penrith.
It won't take much to turn it round. You know, it's not going to take a genius to turn it round. We're just going to play some basic football.
A former Singleton junior, Nathan Croft, has already made a big impact during the pre-season. He's a product of the successful Colts side which qualified for the semis last year, and while he's the first of that vintage to make the top grade, there's plenty more set to follow.
The Colts this year, the backline's looking really good. So there's a couple of guys there pushing for first grade positions at the moment, so the talent's endless.
Croft is part of a talented but inexperienced backline, with local development officer Darren Coleman, a near veteran.
24, 25, isn't he? He's a bit old for us. Yeah.
In the season opener against Warringah last year, it was one of the younger brigade, 5'8" Christian Taylor, who starred. Croft would be more than happy to make a similar debut, but is aware of the enormity of the challenge after Warringah beat Randwick last weekend.
The boys were pretty big. They looked keen and fit. So I'm just going to have to put it over them, hopefully, and score a few points.
It's been an issue of great concern, the threat of violence in the Newcastle CBD. While King Street hotels and nightclubs have brought in private security guards, the Chamber of Commerce wants extra lighting and possibly security cameras in the Hunter Street Mall.
If you're going to be seen, you're going to be nabbed for something, and that's what we're keenly interested in.
The Chamber met today with crime one of the main topics on the agenda, and Newcastle Council copped another wave of criticism, with the businessmen saying there is no more time to waste.
We need to sort of get something going. Nothing's happening. It's a City Council responsibility. Now, something that has got to be recommendations made and ideas. Now, if Council's not putting them forward, the business community's got to talk about it and come up with some ideas to assist them.
The Knights were guilty of some defensive lapses in the first half, but Penrith's 3 tries were all created through some brilliant lead-up work. They went into half-time deserved 16-point leaders. For a team who'd been totally outplayed in their last 2 outings, Newcastle displayed enormous courage to fight back and inject some much-needed confidence.
They showed a lot of character and commitment, and that's what the game's all about, trying to find the best in yourself, and I think they certainly did in that second half.
Assisting in the revival, Robbie McCormack, who came off the bench yesterday to replace an injured Lee Jackson. The Moth made the most of his chance before Jackson returned later in the match.
Both players, played pretty well under the circumstances, and so at this stage I've not made my mind up, but I'll probably run with a similar side that I did last week.
Also heartening, the form of Paul Harrigan, who scored the try that sparked the comeback. The captain warning his best is yet to come.
My fitness is getting there, and I'll make sure that I'll play my best football this year I've ever done. I wasn't happy with last year, and can't wait for this season.
This is how John Smith wanted to spend his time in Newcastle, but yesterday was anything but a walk along the beach.
And it was on fire, quite seriously on fire, so I just thought I've got to get away.
It came just 2 days after the van was fully serviced in Sydney. And just when things couldn't get any worse, the intense heat released the Combi's handbrake, sending it on an uncontrolled journey towards traffic.
As soon as I saw the fire, I knew that the van was finished. What I didn't think would happen was that everything inside it would be destroyed as well.
The Combi is insured, but not its contents, leaving the 2 adventurers thousands of dollars out of pocket.
But we're buying, new clothes, and we had nothing, absolutely nothing. So we're just slowly picking up the pieces now, and that's possibly more depressing than what we were yesterday.
They've lost just about everything. Everything, that is, except their determination to continue their adventure around Australia.
I'm not going to let what happened yesterday stop me enjoying the rest of my time in Australia. I've come too far.
And if nothing else, it gives them a great story to tell the folks back home. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Life may not have been meant to be easy, but it appears it's becoming unbearable for some, especially young women. The study by Women's Health Australia shows that nearly 2 out of every 5 women aged between 18 and 22 are stressed.
But for young women, life's quite difficult, they're telling us, that they're very stressed about their prospects for the future. They're quite stressed about relationships and stressed about all sorts of things.
In comparison, their mothers seem to be coping quite well with the tag Superwoman.
Women 45 to 49 years of age had lots of responsibilities and they were working full time and running families and doing all sorts of superwoman stuff. They're actually managing quite well in the main.
The 20-year national study is only in its infancy, with the full report into women's health issues to involve more than 40,000 respondents. The Newcastle University researchers say it's therefore too early to tell whether the extra stress is a problem or merely a perception.
Maybe it's something to do with the times, the sign of the times, and we'll only know that by following women up over time and seeing if these stressed young women sort things out as they get older.
Older women also smoke less and have a lower risk of being underweight, although they are twice as likely to be overweight or obese. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. It looked like a bomb had exploded. The destruction was just as brutal.
All I just heard was the movement of the bus, bang, and everybody was just getting thrown about in the bus, something dreadful.
It was one of the worst scenes I've seen in my 28 years of traffic policing in New South Wales, and it was horrific with people everywhere. It was just absolute trauma.
The bus was carrying a group of lawn bowlers home from a carnival when it slammed into the family car near the start of the Newcastle-Sydney freeway. The impact killed 39-year-old Debbie Bryson, her 16-year-old son Matthew, and 2 other children, Sarah aged 5 and Mitchell aged 3.
When I went over and I saw the body, I thought it was a doll at first. I just went to pieces.
It saddened the school quite considerably. Obviously, the full impact of the loss hasn't sunk in at this stage.
The only comfort for family that the 2 teenagers in the back of the car survived.
They're coping. I'm very proud of Jo. Jo's the oldest daughter, and I'm very proud of her. She's coping very well, considering that she's lost most of her family, and her other sister Mandy is still, of course, very critical in hospital.
An inquest will be held into the deaths, but it's believed the bus driver swerved across lines to avoid a build-up of traffic ahead. 6 people have now been killed on the 8-kilometre stretch since it became an extension of the freeway in 1993.
It's just a single lane road and there's just too much traffic travelling on it.
Work continued today on the multi-lane freeway, which will replace Lanigan's Drive as a major thoroughfare. But it'll be at least 2 years until it's completed. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Backstroke is arguably Australia's weakest event, and there were concerns that it would hinder the nation's chances in the medley relay at Atlanta. Stewart has been out of form after winning silver at the Commonwealth Games, but with the help of a new coach, last night answered the critics in emphatic fashion. He bettered the old mark by 21 hundredths of a second, and while the 50 metres is a non-Olympic event, it wasn't the race he was targeting at the Aussie Championships.
Yeah, well, I didn't really prepare for the 50. Prepared more for the 2 than the 1, so hopefully for the 1 and the 2, it's looking very good.
The Tascott 20-year-old will contest a 100-metre final tomorrow night. In other results at the Nationals, Newcastle's Joe Mitchell finished 4th in the 800 metres, while Renee Connolly, also from the BHP club, was 4th in the 50-metre backstroke.
Maitland Jail is at the top of the Corrective Services Department hit list. The entire building will be closed down by July next year in a major shake-up of the state's prison system. The move has outraged prison officers who say it's a waste of a valuable resource. Just over 2 years ago, a brand new wing was built with $4 million of taxpayers' money.
Somebody somewhere approved the building of that wing, knowing that there was a new jail opening in Silverwater next year with 900 inmates. Now that's the reason that's been put forward for this jail closing, the opening of the Silverwater jail.
There are plans to upgrade parts of Cessnock Jail to maximum security, but union officials say it's a waste of money when the facility is already in Maitland. But what John Doyle says is even more alarming is that dangerous inmates are being downgraded to minimum security, which puts prison officers as well as the community at risk.
There's a move to just downgrade inmates, whether they're ready for it or not, to lower categories of classification. So the lower category that they are, the less supervision that they need, supposedly. So, I mean, you see in minimum security settings now an increase in assaults, an increase in escapes, etc.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
It was in the sanctuary of Hunter Region churches that Father Vincent Ryan sexually abused young boys. He would ask them to stay behind after altar boy practice, then encourage them to masturbate themselves and him. Yesterday, this once respected priest, who obviously still has supporters within the church, pleaded guilty to 11 charges of sexually abusing 5 young boys between 1974 and 1994. One child was sexually assaulted more than 200 times over 6 years, with Father Ryan supplying him with pornographic material.
There is a sense of shock that somebody that you've known and worked with in some areas has suddenly, discovered to have this problem and been doing these things in a criminal way for so long.
As Vicar General of the diocese, Father Bill Burston is one of many church leaders helping to guide clergy and parishioners as they face what has for so long remained behind closed doors. The church is now taking a far more open approach. But it hasn't always been that way. It appears certain church leaders in the 1970s knew of Father Ryan's behaviour and sent him from the Hunter to another state to recover, but he came back and the abuse continued.
I think that the assumption was in the authorities of the time that having sought help in Melbourne, that things were now okay. Now, that was an assumption, of course, that we now know no longer to be a valid one.
Father Burston admits the church let its children down and he understands their outrage. When allegations of child sexual abuse in the Maitland-Newcastle diocese first came to light, the Catholic Church established a helpline for victims, and that assistance is still being offered to those who have suffered at the hands of Catholic clergy.
They can feel as though they've been let down, and that's why we've provided the service for them, to try and do something about it. Make up completely? Not really, but do something about it, yes.
Father Vincent Ryan will be sentenced next month. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Based on extensive market research, the Energy Australia program is designed to give customers the option of buying electricity from renewable resources, such as solar or hydropower. The new supply option will be known as the Zero Greenhouse portfolio.
Currently within Energy Australia we have access to some small solar through photovoltaics, some small wind demonstrations which both the Sydney and Orion companies had committed to in the past, and some small hydro resources.
People involved in the program will be able to decide how much electricity they buy from the new Zero Greenhouse portfolio, but a total reliance on the scheme will come at a cost.
For a 100% commitment to Zero Greenhouse electrons, it's probably 20 or 30% extra, so it may be an extra $1 a day, up to $1 a day I suppose, but the option is there not to take 100%, maybe 50% or 25%.
The success of the program will depend on the customer's response. If enough people buy the new green energy, the money will be used to set up more extensive supply stations designed for long-term use. Emma Siossian, NBN News. While most children are able to find their way within the traditional school system, others have trouble adapting to the social environment or else fall behind academically. Those students now have the option of attending the Cessnock District Learning Centre, set up last year by teachers from Mountview, Cessnock and Curry High Schools.
Basically, we try and convince the kids that they're worthwhile, that we like them, we respect them, that they can achieve.
Ben and Clint are two students who have come through the Learning Centre and are now back at Mountview High School.
I used to train a lot, and I wasn't real good at schoolwork and that. I don't try it anymore, helps better in schoolwork.
The Learning Centre, with support from the local Lions Club, has organised a public meeting for May the 7th to encourage greater community support. The centre also needs some additional state government funding to keep the program running.
Everyone in the school has plenty to gain from this system that's operating, and so I would hope we would get wide support.